Action fanatics, welcome to another edition of the Bulletproof podcast. I'm your host, Chris the Brain. Joining me once again, it is the Toyman, Chris DePetrillo.
What's up, everybody? Here to bring a little bit of glow to the podcast tonight.
Ooh, yeah, your shiny bald head's glowing from over there. And also joining us once again, it's Ryan Campbell.
I've got some fortune cookies here from the master, and we're going to crack them open as the episode goes on.
I cannot wait to see what our future holds. But let's talk right now before we get into it. You know what I like to talk about before we get started. I like to talk about bulletproofaction.com, and specifically, I want to call out a post that has just been performing amazing just bringing in amazing numbers. Counterattack, a Netflix movie produced in Mexico. Netflix is great. Netflix really brings the world to you. You know what I'm saying? And I've been enjoying.
And you watched that one on a whim. That was not even like a really.
I wasn't planning on it. I got a push notification on my
That's an excellent segue into this episode's sponsor, NordVPN.
Oh, there you
kidding.
go.
John Nord?
Yes, Huss. But yeah, I got this, and I'm like, oh well, that sounds like something I'd be interested in. And as I was watching it, and I meant to bring this up a few episodes ago, as I was watching it, I thought to myself, people have complained, and rightfully so, about the G.I. Joe live action movies.
Second one was good.
It was better.
It was better. Yes, but better way to put it.
And I said, this is like the heart of this movie could have been a G.I. Joe movie. You've got these five soldiers, special forces. They get a 3-day pass. They're on leave, but the cartel that they just screwed with attacks them, and now they're out in the wilderness, and they got all these cartel guys. That's all this has to be, folks. Here's how you do it. Here's my pitch for what the G.I. Joe live action movie should be. You have a big action set piece to begin. You gotta please the fans with crazy vehicles and all that. And you've got these 5 G.I. Joes who really just screw things up for Cobra Commander. And they're Flint, Shipwreck, Roadblock, Mainframe, and Tunnel Rat. And these 5 guys screw up this whole big plan of Cobra Commander. So Cobra Commander is pissed at them. Fine. But now these 5 guys, you know what, guys? Great job. Why don't you go down to Bourbon Street? You have yourselves a good time this weekend. You've earned it. Roadblock. He's like, oh, I know that. He's from that neck of the woods. So they go off to have their weekend. But know who was there? Know who heard about them going on this weekend, Chris? Do you know? Can you guess?
Zartan and the Dreadnoughts?
That's right. It was Zartan. He was in disguise, so he knows. So we go to cut to Cobra, and Cobra Commander's pissed. And then Zartan's like, well, we can possibly get some revenge on those 5 Joes that ruined your latest scheme, Cobra Commander. Oh, whatever you need, Zartan. So I got our Joes. They're going to their trip. They get attacked by battle android troopers and some dreadnoughts, and then we just go from there. Now they're out in the swamps of New Orleans and Louisiana. They're out in the swamps in the wilderness, and then
Avenging Force style.
And then you've just got all this happening, and then at the end you could have another big battle where all the characters could come involved again. That's all it needs to be. I think they try to do too much with these G.I. Joe movies when they should have kind of gone more the Marvel route and kind of establish a bunch of characters and then pull them all together down the road.
I like it. I like the idea.
What about the martial arts guys, though? No snake eyes.
And
no
I thought about
kicks.
that, and I was like, but that's what you tease with. Then it's like, okay, great job. And then, we just got a Snake Eyes is checking in. He's over in Japan. Like, that's the tease for the next one.
There you go. That's the post-credit stinger.
Because
I like this as a feature.
You still have to get people pissed off. So yeah, I had to take those because if people didn't have something to complain about, why do we even have the internet?
I like the idea of this being a feature on the podcast where we're like fantasy booking movies that we would have done.
Well, that's what I would do.
We already fantasy booked Lego Death Wish game. And now we can...
I've got to find those notes.
I did see a post that Lego is moving their future video game production all in house.
Okay, there you go. So that's my thought. You know, that would have been my G.I. Joe movie. Spotlight 5 Joes. Get these dreadnoughts. They're great characters. Obviously, you got battle android troopers. You could just kill them. And, you know, gadget. Like Cobra could have had something so the cell phone reception suddenly died all over there. And maybe Flint was on the phone with his girl, Lady J, when the signal cut out. So that's how they're like, hey, what happened? Well, this, and, you know, they start figuring it out. So there's a rescue team. It's beautiful. It would have been wonderful. I want to do it. Somebody give me money. Let's make my G.I. Joe.
GoFundMe.
Let's make my G.I. Joe movie, please.
To bring it back to what we're talking about today, there is a correlation to how I feel this movie could have been another popular franchise movie.
When you sent me that, I'm like, oh boy, he's going right down the same path I am, but a different one, but the same kind. A parallel street, perhaps. I don't know.
There you go.
All right.
It's poetry. It rhymes.
It does. All right. Let's get into it, guys, because you know what's going to celebrate its 40th anniversary on March 22nd? It's The Last Dragon. Hello? Hello? Where'd everybody go?
Was that it? Was that the build-up? Was that the lead-in?
It's The Last Dragon. You know something? Do you know that I have I'm like directly connected to the movie?
Ooh.
Oh, so there's no 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon
No,
with you.
it's
It's
me
just
and me connected, because I commentated a match, did the play-by-play for a tag team match where Toyman teamed up with Jimmy Wang.
I remember that match.
Mm-hmm.
It was around, was it 2006, 2007?
Yep, 2006.
There you go.
Yep, that was me.
Now, did you get to meet the man? Did you get to exchange
I
words?
said hello. That was about it.
You better, or else someone's
Was he a
gonna steal your
positive
bag or
influence in
something.
the locker room?
As far as I know, I don't think wasn't a negative. People weren't upset with him. He brought a certain glow to the proceedings. Hello? Is anyone still there? What's going on today?
Bueller?
Bueller?
But yeah, no, I did do the commentary for the Toyman and Jimmy Wang Yang against, or Jimmy Yang versus the Irish Airborne, I believe.
That sounds about
Do you
right.
still have a copy of that match? Do you have like a DVD?
I might have a DVD somewhere around here. I did find my Mission of Justice VHS that I said I would look for weeks ago. I did spot that. So I'm a little bit behind on my collecting.
In my garage, I have a book bag that is full of DV tapes from all the Sorg shows and stuff. Who knows what's on there?
Who knows, indeed. All right, well, let's get into the movie. The Last Dragon, released March 22nd, 1985. Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon, if you want to be proper. And we...
Motown and martial arts, the merger everyone was waiting for.
It was a dream team. And we meet Toyman's character, Leroy Green, in a very classic kung fu movie type way to introduce your hero, Chris.
Yeah, it starts off with Leroy training to the sound. Now, a touch that I like about the beginning of the movie is as Leroy is training, dodging arrows, hitting various, punching bags and blocking mechanisms, they're playing the theme song that we will come to know and over the years have become very familiar with of The Last Dragon. But if you notice, because obviously we've got a story to tell here, people, they never let the song get to the chorus where it says, "You are the last dragon." So if you're going into this one blind, you don't know that Leroy is the last dragon.
Right. Ryan Campbell did go into this one blind, I'm pretty sure.
I did, yes. I
This was
never.
another first time one for you?
Oh yeah, a lot of these are.
Now, see, I understand Full Contact. I can understand that or Mission of Justice, but I'm kind of surprised that The Last Dragon would be a first time watch for you 40 years later.
Yeah, slipped under the radar. We didn't, and all the days with Brain and stuff. We didn't watch a lot of kung fu at the time, so
No, I failed you there. We were too busy getting into the canon world.
Okay, well, I mean, that's acceptable.
You bet.
that and Iron Chef and
A-
maybe Iron Chef is the closest we got.
AWA
Yeah.
wrestling on ESPN Classic. Yeah, so we've got we get to see him doing his thing. And that's when his master really pulls the rug from underneath him and is like, I've taught you everything I can. You're going to have to go find a new master who can get you to that final level. Here's a medallion that belonged to Bruce Lee. Here now, Chris, they do drop the line about Last Dragon and they do mention the glow. But again, you know,
But yes,
first,
it was
first,
a hint of things to
yeah,
come.
first time you're watching this though, you don't. What does any of this mean? What does any of this mean? I don't know. Cut.
Could just be a title.
Mystical mumbo jumbo.
Exactly. So we cut to the a movie theater, and they are showing Enter the Dragon in front of a very enthusiastic crowd who has obviously seen this movie before, Chris.
Yeah, and it's a movie that they would have had to have paid the rights to license. I mean, you could have very easily gotten Fist of Fury, Chinese Connection, the public domain Bruce Lee movies,
Mhm.
but no, they actually went all out and they're showing the man's breakthrough hit. And it's a pretty rowdy crowd, almost as rowdy as when the Garbage Pail Kids went to go watch the Three Stooges in their
Oh,
movie.
jeez. Another garbage. All right. You know, being that it's 1985, and obviously this was filmed in 84, it's not a surprise that spontaneous breakdancing happens in the aisle. Because that was happening everywhere in 1984.
I do find it funny everyone that complains about people pulling out their phones to like record parts of movies now. Like, man, you go back and watch the movie in this theater.
Yeah, you'd had a lot to say. But
And also, was popcorn free back then? That everyone was just constant, just chucking
yeah,
popcorn
it was
everywhere,
very cheap.
flinging their buckets around, just
It
willy
was
nilly.
very cheap back then.
I guess
Tickets were cheaper, concessions were cheaper. It was a magical time to go to the theater.
that is one of the things I really liked about the movie. Just getting ahead of it a little bit on this one is just the way that it is a love letter to Bruce Lee and that whole entire
Mhm.
genre. And we talked a little bit, Brain, about this throughout the week. Was how just there was this intersection of kind of inner city black culture along with Asian, especially kung fu culture, and how there was such a I would have loved. I know there's some YouTube videos out there that kind of dive in deeper to it. I think if I had a little bit more time, try to get somebody to come on and kind of talk about it that can speak to it better than three white guys here. But yeah, I mean, you made some good points about kind of where that came from and why there was such a kind of commonality and camaraderie between, and how people back then found such belonging in Bruce Lee and just kung fu. And this whole movie is kind of a love letter to that.
It really is. And so
There's actually if you guys go and listen to the comedian Joey Diaz, who's got his own podcast, on one of the older episodes, I think he was talking to Anthony from Opie and Anthony fame, but they were talking about old school New York, and Joey Diaz grew up in old New York and New Jersey when he moved here from Cuba, and he's talking about, he's like, black people loved Bruce Lee. He's like, once Bruce Lee hit, he's like, everybody was going nuts. They're buying the tracksuits, the shoes. He's like, you'd be in the middle of the city and you'd see 20 guys, dressed like Bruce Lee throwing kicks. He said it was just like, once Bruce Lee hit, it really was like that urban culture that really
right.
accepted him and went nuts for him.
And it's kind of continued. I mean, you look at like Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, some of the more popular animes, some of the more like diehard fans come from those communities.
Well, look at the Wu-Tang Clan. I mean, they have their own YouTube channel filled with all those public domain kung fu movies, and yeah, it's definitely a real thing, and like you said, Ryan, we get to see that on display here, because after the breakdancing in the aisle, here he comes, the Shogun of Harlem himself, Sho'nuff. he makes a grand entrance. He has a whole entourage that includes guys like Beast, Cyclone, and Crunch, and Ryan Campbell. It is that time once again where I ask you, where have you seen Crunch before?
Ooh, Crunch. Yeah, he did look familiar, but I don't know if I could.
It's not Gary Robbins, Ryan.
If I was watching it right now, I could probably work it out. But
He,
thinking of it just
he
on
had
top of,
facial
I
hair.
thought Sho'nuff was the guy from the Old Spice commercials now.
No. Sadly, Julius Cray is no longer with us to do Old Spice commercials. But Crunch was later this same year, the Giggler.
Oh, man,
that's right.
Yeah, I'm surprised that one. He must have.
He was clean shaven as Crunch
with all that. Yeah, I couldn't tell with all that shit on that he was wearing it. I needed him to be much more sleek.
Yeah.
Talk about a love letter to urban culture, going from The Last Dragon to Death Wish 3.
That's a double feature I'd be all about. So a kid in the theater speaks up as like, Bruce Leroy could defeat you, Sho'nuff, and that's not what Sho'nuff wants to hear. And he's like, yeah, Bruce Leroy is the only thing standing between me and total supremacy. He laughs about the stories that Bruce Leroy is so good he can catch bullets with his teeth. And at that point, we've got some guys up in the balcony, Chris, that they're there for the movie, and this is obviously quite a distraction.
Yeah, a couple of guys that kind of look like they were rejected from the over-the-top auditions decide to be the ones to stand up to Sho'nuff. So you're at a Bruce Lee movie, and these are very non-Bruce Lee, very non-martial arts type guys shouting Sho'nuff down.
So yeah,
I like how this is where they drew the line. Nothing else that was going on before this. They could, I guess, still focus on the movie, but this is where they draw the line.
At some point, you have to make some concession.
Everyone's got their moment,
They weren't the first ones to get to the boombox. The Asian fellow that was, they kind of did the parallel to the movie where he did the Bruce Lee turn and then he walked and he did like the big stomp on the boombox. So they just couldn't get all the way down there to stomp on that boombox from the balcony.
But yeah, chaos does ensue during all.
Did those boomboxes break that easy? I feel like those things would have been like bulletproof.
They are not bulletproof if you watch Death Wish 2, which we just did.
Yeah.
You're right.
God.
I wasn't alive. I don't know.
Pay attention.
I'm asking if they were really like that.
We just watched it. We know they're not bulletproof. Jiver thought they were.
Was John Cusack just weak? He couldn't lift that thing over his head? Like, it looked like he was struggling to lift it over his head.
That's why he needed both hands.
All the strength was in his legs because he was a kickboxer.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, the chaos in the theater. Leroy slips out the side door. Sho'nuff does spot him and talks a little trash. And now we're going to cut to our villain, or our other villain, Eddie Arcadian and his lady Angie, and they're watching another edition of Laura's Video Hot Picks.
What a time.
Which is basically like Solid Gold. If you remember Solid Gold, there's a reference for all you folks out there.
Yes, you old folks.
Let's get a bunch of young people in a warehouse, throw some laser lights, and play some music videos.
Yeah.
What a
Soul
time.
Train. Soul Train 2 is kind of appropriate.
Soul Train, a little USA dance party.
Yeah.
And Eddie's got big plans for his lady Angie. He's like, your video's going to be on this show soon, and you'll be the big star, not this Laura Charles. And we should point out that Laura is played by one of the all-time greats, Vanity, Action Jackson's own.
That's right. That one, yeah. We're 3 for 3 now on 3 straight weeks of some certified hotties.
And I believe this was around the time that she was dating Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was around like the 1985-86 era.
Interesting. She introduces the DeBarge music video, Rhythm of the Night, which was a huge hit. Probably the biggest hit off of the album.
Was it from the movie?
Yes,
like
made for the movie.
Oh, that's interesting because I did know that. Like I know Rhythm of the Night. I didn't know this was
a big.
DeBarge was like the soundtrack king between this and Short Circuit.
Oh, Who's Johnny? Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of they were much like Kenny Loggins. They got into a groove. Um, we meet Rock, who is the muscle for Eddie Arcadian, played by Mike Starr.
Played by the great Mike Starr. Yeah.
He's feeding his pet fish. I guess it's like a piranha or a barracuda. We don't really ever get a look
Yeah.
at it. It has a
I
healthy
love how
appetite.
that. I love how that just never pays off. Like that's my movie brain. When as soon as I saw that, I was like, "Oh, I know that's probably gonna come back later."
Well, there is a very brief part, but like nothing really happens to it. But I was gonna say it kind of reminds me of the swimming pool in Revenge of the Nerds 2 when they go to the Cuban ladies hotel. Do you remember what I'm
I
talking
do
about?
not. It's been a
When
long
so you've
time.
seen part 2
I've seen it.
go
They
to
go,
Florida,
yeah, I've seen it, but it was a
and
long time ago.
the great Ed Lauder kicks them out of the
Uh-huh.
hotel because he's an Alpha Beta alumni, and so they go to the Hotel Coral Essex, which is run by a very nice Cuban lady, and there's a pool that's just brown water and stuff, and she's eating a chicken wing, and she throws it in the pool, and then the water starts bubbling, and you hear like a growl,
Mm,
and they're all like, and she's like, nope, and she starts like yelling at them in Spanish, like, nothing to see here, like, come on, let's keep going.
mm. Uh, did you recognize Mike Starr from anything, Ryan Campbell?
Ryan Campbell, let's put it this way, you better recognize Mike Starr from
Oh,
something.
Yeah, I mean he's written all kinds of stuff. Honestly, for me, it's the first thing that comes to mind is Dumb and Dumber.
You know what in this one, yeah, he's makeup on and he drives a mouse. He's Pooter the clown from Uncle Buck.
He's been all It's one. He's been in all kinds of stuff.
So I'm like, I'm pretty sure he was in Uncle Buck, isn't he? And I'm like, yep, he sure was.
Now, for Bulletproof action fans, he was also in one of Steven Seagal's last big budget features, On Deadly Ground.
Are you trying to say Uncle Buck doesn't qualify for action?
No, well, Uncle Buck doesn't qualify for action, but something that's right on the brink of being action and also a drama, but he's in one of the absolute greatest films of all time. He's in Goodfellas, guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He helps them pull off the airport
Yep.
heist.
Talk about range.
Yeah, Mike Starr, he's your guy.
But he's been, yeah, he's a cornerstone of the character actor circuit.
I'm gonna guess he probably popped up on Sopranos too.
He was in Kojak a couple of times.
Thank God we
You
found
mentioned
somebody from
Kojak a while
Kojak, and of
ago.
course his brother Bo stars in a lot of things too. Mm-hmm.
Such as
Probably the
can't
A.
just leave us
The
hanging.
A team. Other stuff.
Now, do you know he was in another martial arts movie
Whew.
the same year as The Last
Oh,
Dragon? One that had less success, but has a bigger leading man.
same year, 1985.
Less box office success, but a more prominent leading man.
Less box office success than Last Dragon's pretty bad because Last Dragon didn't do all that well at the box office. It
He was
did
in
better than.
The Protector.
Oh
With
yeah,
Jackie
Jackie
Chan.
Chan. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which did not do too
No, that
well,
one
which is
didn't
why
do.
Jackie Chan took a little while
Yep.
longer
That
to
was
really break
catch
through
on.
that was
here.
another attempt to
Well,
get him over.
while we're on it, I'm going to open up this first fortune cookie.
Oh, good. Here we go.
Your efforts today will shape your tomorrow.
That's profound. Is Bo Starr in The Perfect Weapon?
I believe he
Isn't he the
is,
dad?
but let's consult.
Here we go. This is gonna be a 4-hour episode, folks. So grab your
While we're waiting, I'm going to open another
grab yourself a
fortune cookie
snack, maybe a fortune cookie.
The act of giving is more important than receiving.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not really a fortune.
I mean, what I remember Bo Starr the most from is Halloween 4 and 5.
Oh yeah. Wasn't he what's her name?
He was the
Kathleen Kinmont's dad?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Perfect Weapon was what, 1991?
Correct.
Let's scroll down to 1990. He was, yep, Captain Carl Sanders.
Thank you, everyone. All right. I feel vindicated. Now, back at the TV studio, somebody I totally forgot was in this freaking movie It's William H. Macy.
Yeah, that's what popped up.
Yeah.
That had to be pretty early. Is this like one of his? I was he in stuff before this, or was this kind of an early side role for
No,
him?
this was like very early for him.
So he's like a producer on the show. He's pleading with Laura, hey, you got to take a look at this video. It's from this Eddie Arcadian guy who's bad. We can't, you don't want to get on the bad side of Eddie Arcadian. But Laura's like, I don't freaking care about no Eddie Arcadian. I'm not interested.
I'm Vanity.
And now it's time for my big entrance, and she gets a big entrance. She gets lowered down, performing her song Seventh Heaven, which I listened to about 4 times before we started recording.
What a construction of like the just normal lights all kind of just formed into a circle with the different kind of gels on them, and she just comes down the middle of it.
It was an entrance. I mean, Sho'nuff got a big entrance. She gets a big entrance. Whose big entrance did you like better? Let us know at Bulletproof Pod on X and Blue Sky, and at Bulletproof Action on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Let us know who had the better entrance.
And YouTube. This one's going to go up on YouTube.
Oh, indeed it will. We're back in the YouTube game here, folks. So if you're listening to us on YouTube, welcome. We're going to
also hit that like button and subscribe
because we're going to start. If you've missed out, we're going to start putting the archives up, and we're going to keep up with all the new episodes as we go here in 2025. There's a big contest. Win a night out with Laura Charles, and there's a young man in the audience who is bound and determined that he is going to be the one to win. He's telling his friends. He's telling them all. His name is Richie. We find out he's Richie Green, the younger brother of Bruce Leroy Green. And
did you recognize Richie Green from anything?
Did I? Rappin'?
Oh yeah, also from 1985, and also where he played the main character's little brother.
Yeah, he was typecast that year.
He's great in this movie. Like he just has.
He's good.
That kind of that like kid who has confidence well above his years kind of role. It's really good in that.
So at this point, Eddie has learned that he's been turned down, and he is not happy.
You don't get to this level in the music business without, crushing some heads when people say no.
Right. You're right. So now it's after the show. Laura's leaving the studio. There's a mob of fans outside, as one would assume. She's got this popular show that appeals to the youth of America.
Her finger on the pulse, you may say.
I might. I'm not this time, but you could say it. So she's out there. She's walking to her limo, or her car at least. I don't remember if it was really a limo. She has a driver. And Bruce Leroy happens to be walking by, and the two of them lock eyes. And there may not be a glow right now, Chris, but there's definitely some sparks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if there was a cartoon, you would see the eyeballs turn into hearts with the way they are glazing their looks over at each other.
And you can also tell it's kind of one of those moments where everyone is so obsessed with her, like the fact that he very obviously doesn't even know who she is, is somewhat.
Yeah, like he's very calm and relaxed. Yeah,
right. She's very intrigued at someone who doesn't clearly know how famous I am. That's intriguing.
His tongue wasn't wagging. You're just like, okay.
Not yet. It's going to get there.
Laura is like, she says something to her usual driver. Oh, he's not here. I'm the replacement driver. And he just doesn't drive very far. And he pulls over, and there's Arcadian's goons. They're ready to take Laura from that car to their car.
This whole movie takes place on one block of New York.
And that's fine. That's all you need.
Yeah.
It's all you need.
There's a whole world in
and
that
now,
one
gentlemen,
block.
Did we notice who the driver was?
No, I did not.
You did not notice who the driver was. Now, Ryan Campbell, I know that you went into this one blind. Also very famous, right up there with William H. Macy. Also, his first movie role was this. I think he did like a couple like student films or short films, and also somebody from one of the greatest, also happens to be a mafia film of all time. It was Chaz Palminteri.
Oh my word!
Chaz Palminteri was the driver who got kicked into the door by Bruce Leroy.
I was not even paying attention. Probably because I saw Vanity, and hearts were in my eye at this point.
There you go. You
But
were
this
too
Bronx
caught up in
Tale
the
is
rhythm of
about
the night.
Well,
this Bronx Tale is about Bruce
oh,
Leroy, so
okay,
that's why I'll let it slide.
okay. Aren't they in Brooklyn? Okay. Um, Bruce Leroy
Okay.
to the rescue. So he takes care of these goons. Then he hails Laura a cab, and just like that, he disappears. But what he doesn't realize, but what Laura realizes, is he dropped his Bruce Lee medallion. So she
Ooh.
picks it up and she drives away. And that's
So this is the moment,
mm-hmm.
Brain, where I first had the kind of epiphany that this could very easily be a Spider-Man movie.
Ooh, please share your theories.
Now it's gonna be one of the early like street level Spider-Man stories, like very early on. He's
Hmm.
kind of coming into his powers. Let's say that it could be any of his love interests over the years, but some that were more popular, that were on the news or something like that. Gwen Stacy at some points was kind of like a popular model or something like that. And yeah, he saves her, leaves something behind. There's kind of like the street gangs and battling. Like it reminds me a lot of a very street level Spider-Man story, and I think there's a lot of similarities to it. This is kind of the moment right here that kind of popped that in my head.
Well, somebody might get their head popped off if Eddie Arcadian doesn't get his way, because his goons show up and he's like, "Oh, you wouldn't believe she had a bunch of big black bodyguards, and there was nothing we could do."
Oh, there's 50 of
Yeah,
them.
they just telling tall tales. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna just have to have Rock handle this. So the next day, Leroy is teaching his martial arts class. We meet young Johnny Yu. Chris, what a charismatic character he is.
Yeah, and it's a shame that Glenn Eaton, who plays him, didn't really go on to do too much more because, he kind of steals every scene
Yeah,
he's
he
in.
does.
He really is just like kind of like the likable goofball, the guy like everyone's got a friend like that. Kind of goofy, kind of like, slacker or just, not taking things as seriously, but when push comes to shove, he's always there for you.
If you're going to have your main character be kind of aloof and somewhat kind of resigned and uh, out of the know, you have to have their partner in crime be an over the top character like this, and yeah, he plays that perfectly.
He does. And
It's almost like a throwback to old school kung fu movies where you kind of have like that wacky village idiot type guy, but he's, really kind of like an undercover badass.
mm-hmm. But the fun and games are about to end because Sho'nuff and his crew come in. They disrupt everything. Um, Once again, Sho'nuff, he desperately wants to fight Bruce Leroy and beat him. But Bruce Leroy,
Sometimes you just got to know. You got to know where you stack up.
Bruce Leroy has no quarrel with this man. He has no reason to fight him. And then he's like, "You're gonna kiss my feet," and of course he's not gonna do that until they threaten to harm Johnny Yu, and we get the classic "Kiss my Converse" line, and Bruce has to save his friend from harm. Bruce is a good-hearted young man, and
And even after that, Sho'nuff's like, I'm still gonna beat your
right,
ass.
yeah, I'm gonna force you to fight me someday, Bruce Leroy. So now we go to the green apartment. Richie is telling his dad about this date he's going to win with Laura Charles, and he is just ripping on his brother, who is obviously not your normal everyday guy, a bit eccentric to say the least. And
But hey, there's got to be something for some supportive
right,
parents.
and they're good. And we also see Rudy Huxtable at the table.
Yeah, who is unnamed because the parents can't decide on a name for her.
That's why I just called her Rudy Huxtable. Uh, and you should direct your pizza to Daddy Green's Pizza. If you're looking for a pizza tonight, folks. And hopefully Daddy Green has pizza somewhere. It'd be
Feeding the whole block.
yeah, he's good. Um
And see, this film was everything to me when I was, 5, 6 years old when I first saw it because, you got someone who loves Bruce Lee to the point where he's kind of mimicking him.
Right.
It's, you know, hip hop and R&B
Right.
culture, which I loved. You know, I've gone into great detail with that. And Leroy's dad owns a pizza shop, very similar to how my family owns bakeries.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I'm watching my own life unfold before my eyes. Could I be the last dragon?
No,
I'm still trying to figure
you
that out.
cannot.
Did
I'm
did you guys have like a music video machine in your bakery that you didn't even own?
No, the closest we had was a boombox akin to the one that got stomped on.
There you go.
So Richie he torments Bruce Leroy. But no, Leroy sees the commercial. And there's Laura. It's like, and she may have something I need. And Richie's like, yeah, well, no kidding. She's got something every man needs.
That's right.
But so they go down to they got to get the shop ready for business. And again, this is just Richie continuing to, this, you would expect the older brother to pick on the little brother, but the roles are reversed here. As you said, Ryan, Richie's like wise beyond his years, has confidence like he's a grown ass man.
Street tough, that kind of street tough kid.
And finally, though, Leroy does convince him, like, you've got to show me where, I need to speak to Laura Charles. I need to talk to her. So Richie shows him the back entrance to the TV studio. And Leroy, again, being like, you sneak it. You're not paying to get in. Like, they skip the line. They just go to this other entrance. That bothers Leroy. And I can understand that. Play by the rules, folks.
No, his brother has no honor.
Right. Speaking of people with no honor, Rock is impersonating a member of the production team. They got like the satellite truck outside, and he's like, "Oh, we need you for was it like a sound check or something?" Like, it didn't make any sense why she had to come out to the truck, but whatever. They get her in the truck. The truck speeds off.
I think she sets the record for amount of times kidnapped in a single movie.
Yeah, only Duke could beat her at that. Taking it back to G.I. Joe.
Bringing it back, yeah.
So she gets there, and Bruce sees it, but he's not fast enough. But Rock dropped his like clipboard gimmick, and it had Arcadian Productions on it, so he knows exactly where he needs to go. And we go there, and Laura is now being forced to watch Angie's video, Chris.
Oh, torture.
Yeah, a very goofy bubblegum pop song called Dirty Books, which is apparently about her finding Eddie Arcadian's porno stash. And it's very, let's see, Angie is obviously, she's not old, but she's not super young. And it seemed like they were trying to kind of take this like, middle-aged woman and make her into some type of Madonna.
Yeah, mix of Madonna
like
and
she's got the
Cyndi
whole
Lauper.
Madonna, Cyndi Lauper. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what's hot, and we're gonna make her the next one.
Just all the 80s stuff right in there. Just throw it all
exactly. In there. And so like she sees the video. Okay, so now you're gonna play this video, right? I mean, we've kidnapped you, we've forced you, you've seen it though, how great it is. You're gonna play the video. No.
I do respect his commitment to the game, that even after kidnapping her and threatening her, he still shows it to her like, that's great, right? You're gonna forget all this, and actually, like, if you would have seen it, it stands on its own, despite the fact that we've kidnapped you twice.
So now it's like, okay, no, we're gonna feed you to the fish. But in comes a ninja Bruce Leroy, Chris. Like, if this movie couldn't get any better, we now have a guy in a ninja outfit.
Yeah, we get a ninja Bruce Leroy. Now, if there were Last Dragon action figures, which I'm sure at some point you were going to bring up, but there's your variant edition right there. You get the regular Bruce Leroy, and then you get a ninja Bruce Leroy as a pretty easy variant to do.
If only we knew someone who could do something about this.
Would they glow in the dark?
I mean, Figures Toy Company has done glow-in-the-dark figures before for several of our original legends, the glow-in-the-dark King Kong Bundy and Abdullah the Butcher years ago.
Right. Why did those glow in the dark? Were they by it?
It was just it was a choice. That's pretty much. That was actually before my time. I came aboard right after the Bundy and Abdullah got released, so I did not have any say
Mm,
in that
mm.
one. But if you notice, there were no glow in the dark, Chris Heroes or Sandmans.
No, that would be ridiculous. Only big fat bald guys could glow in the dark.
That's right. Can it come with a breakaway boombox accessory?
Yeah, we're gonna need that.
There is. I'm trying to think of who has.
Ooh,
There is someone. I can't think of what toy, but there is like a breakable boombox accessory,
from the
and I'm
Jacks.
trying to think.
I feel like the Jacks had one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes, yep. Yeah, but I couldn't think like if it came with someone or if it was just in one of the accessory
I
sets.
think it came with X-Pac for some reason.
Sounds about right. That black and red silver outfit Xbox.
Maybe so. Tucker Carlson, if you're listening, please. He's not listening.
I'll go up to Trader's World this weekend and find it.
He's going to be there. You might bump into him. So yeah, Bruce Leroy comes in. He warns Eddie, "You better just leave this woman alone." Eddie rips off the mask. Then Bruce takes Eddie's head and puts it into the fish tank, and Eddie's light flashes
Whoa!
before his eyes. And then at that point, Bruce and Laura have taken their leave, and he's like, "That SOB is history." And Bruce Leroy takes Laura home, officially introduces himself as Leroy Green, and asks if she happens to have his medallion. And by God, she has it. And boy, when
And that was also the payoff Ryan was looking for with the water
right,
tank, although the raw meat got devoured in
mm,
seconds, and Eddie Arcadian's face was under there for a good 30
yeah,
seconds, and he came up with not even a scratch on it.
It's those kung fu reflexes. Snapped him right back out of there once he realized what was
maybe
going on.
he had some awful cologne on that.
He looks like he would wear
Yeah,
awful cologne.
so
But
fish were like,
It's still
what?
it still makes you think that the fish is going to get it in the end as the cause of some sort of accident from the buffoons themselves. Like that's where your mind is going. Like, oh, they're going to like fall into it because of their own,
Yeah,
stupidity.
Thinking
Or
about
something.
Bad Boys, what happened in Bad Boys Ride or Die.
Yeah, hoisted from their own petard or something like that. I don't know.
Well, Laura comes back with the medallion. She's like really just flirting with Leroy, who is super super nervous. This absolutely beautiful woman just flirting with him. He gets the medallion back, but he's like, "I must leave because I have." Yeah, he's got to go find this new master. So he kind of gets out of there.
Play a little hard to get, even though somewhat inadvertently.
Right. Right. He's playing he's just making himself more appealing to Laura.
Yeah, it's all about the chase. They love the chase.
Without,
Brain.
oh, okay. That's probably been my problem. Yeah, sure. What do you need from me? And they're like, no, I don't want that. Screw it. All right. Now we're going to meet Huey, Dewey, and Louie at the fortune cookie shop, and they're doing like a whole song and dance number. Chris, did you do this outside your bakery to drum up business?
Not to this particular song, but I was known for singing along to some music on the boombox as I was going to visit my grandmother or my cousin, or in later years working there.
I I heard Mean Gene earlier singing along to Grab Them Cakes. And it really.
Do you prefer Mean Gene's Grab Them Cakes or Mean Gene's Tutti Frutti?
Well, that's good. Tutti Frutti, yeah. But yeah, the Junkyard Dog was wrestling King Kong Bundy, who you just mentioned, at the Boston Garden. And yeah, as the song was playing, Gene just could not control himself and had to join in with Grab Them Cakes. Right. And I don't blame him. Which you could have grabbed a lot of cakes at the DePetrillo Bakery.
There you go. And while we are at the fortune cookie factory, let's grab them fortune cookies and crack one open. Okay. Excuses are easy to manufacture and hard to sell.
Send that one to Chad Cruz. All right. I'm sorry. So they goes to the fortune cookie shop. Huey, Dewey, Louie there. They're like, no, there's no master. But Bruce is like, oh, they're probably, they can't just say yes. The master's there, so oh well, he'll have to come up with some other way to get to the master. But while that's all going on, Sho'nuff and his crew show up at Daddy Green's pizza shop, and they're like, "You need to, where's your son?" And Daddy Green's like, even if I knew, I don't think I would tell you. So that pisses off Sho'nuff, and he just chops a table in half. And then he tells his boys to just do their thing. And they tear the shit out of that place, Ryan Campbell, including the video machine.
It wasn't even his.
No. And then he leaves, tell your chicken-hearted son to name the place. It's Sho'nuff.
They dump Richie in the garbage can.
Oh yeah, poor Richie's head first in the trash can.
With a white shirt while there's all sauce in the trash.
Oh. Get the Tide out. Tide, another sponsor of the Bulletproof podcast. Maybe.
Possibly you, investors.
We're looking for investors, Tide. So Leroy then comes in after it's all done, the aftermath. He sees all the carnage. Richie's pissed. He calls him a coward, which causes Leroy to go to his school and do some rage training. This is probably the most mad we see.
The best kind of training.
Yeah. I mean, he's mad, Chris. We haven't seen really mad Bruce Leroy. He's been pretty even keel. But
yeah, even when he first walks in, it's not like he's like, "What the hell happened?" Right. It's like he's kind of like moved to tears. Like his mom has to kind of like come and console him, and he's kind of like, I've brought this upon my family, so now it's time for vengeance.
Correct.
You know who else? Their actions inadvertently bring a lot of harm on those around them and those that they love.
Who's that?
Spider-Man.
Bruce for not posting in months.
Oh my word.
We miss you, Chad.
Yeah, we do miss you, Chad Cruz. Do you think he's listening? Do you think he has time to even listen to us anymore?
I mean, it's the only way he's going to get the sounds of our voice, right? I hope he is.
Yeah, he probably misses us greatly. So yeah, after his rage training, it's now time to meditate. And that's when Laura shows up and she's like, "Hey, you've done a pretty good job for me. Why don't I officially make you my bodyguard?" But Leroy is,
bodyguard, like guard my body, like keep our bodies really close. Like she's just laying it on thick and it's just going right over his head.
Yeah, he's just completely aloof and he's like, not interested. And now we turn to Eddie, who is interviewing new goons because
what an exciting time.
Fresh
batch of new faces to bring new energy to the gooning.
All kinds of action figure possibilities here.
That's right.
Or indie wrestling possibilities. I'm sure that some of these guys look like a couple of the characters you've come across in your tenure.
I'm surprised Gary Robbins wasn't interviewed.
That would have been great.
Mm-hmm.
Was it too early for him?
It's never too early for Gary Robbins.
That's right. The Canadian Giant is
even in 1980.
Always on.
He was already like 6'2" at that point. He may not have been 7'12". That's not even. That's right. That's in metric, so it's different.
Standing on a feet of 7'12".
It's 7 feet 12 centimeters.
Oh, gotcha.
They mixed them up. Angie's rehearsing, and this is things get a little bit strange here between Eddie and Angie because he's like, "Yeah, as soon as we get Leroy out of the way, Laura will wise up and you'll get everything." But now Angie's like, "Wait a minute, I don't." She doesn't want to be famous that way. She doesn't want Eddie to kill anybody. And then she's like, the light bulb comes on. It's like, you're using me to get what you want. Just like we find out he tried to make Rock like a big pro boxer that failed. So you're doing the same thing you did to him. Big argument. Angie leaves. And I say, good for you, Angie.
I'm starting to think this guy has a horrible eye for talent.
You don't need Eddie Arcadian. He's a user. And Sho'nuff, Rock has found Sho'nuff, and Eddie and Rock are looking at him. They're like, "Oh yeah, this guy we gotta hire." But Sho'nuff, Chris, he doesn't want money.
No, he just Sho'nuff, or as Eddie says, Mr. Nuff.
Right.
He just wants Bruce Leroy in the designated place at the designated time so he can designate his ass. Was it designate his ass for
I
termination or
believe so. I
extermination?
believe so. He has a way with words, does that Sho'nuff. Um, Meanwhile, Laura has made his way over to Laura's. He does apologize for their earlier meeting, and I would love to be your bodyguard, but I have a mission to complete. But she's like, all right, well,
Ooh.
I've got something to show you. And Ryan Campbell, when she said this, got a very dirty thought, but instead they're going to the studio.
Yes, sadly, this is for all of the great Vanity appearances. This is one where she does not. I don't know how to say show the goods. I guess.
It may be the only one, because she even like Never Too Young to Die, which I don't. I mean, that was like probably that wasn't was that an R rated or just PG-13, and that was like they just
Snuck it in
yeah
there.
they just
No, I'm pretty sure Never Too Young to Die was R-rated.
okay, that would make sense because it didn't seem like an R. Maybe it's because maybe it's because it's got John Stamos in it. I wouldn't think it was R, but if you are needing some John Stamos content, folks, bulletproofaction.com and Matt Spector's recent review of Born to Ride. Check it out.
Oh, it's hot. It's a hot article.
It's something. Laura takes him to the studio, and while the drive there, he's able to kind of talk about the glow and this mission he's on, and that's all well and good. But boy, does
he just lore dumps on
yep.
her.
And then he starts talking about how his friend has no moves, and oh, I could show you some moves, but he's oh no, it's not me, and that old game is playing out here. But
has that ever fooled anyone?
I don't think so.
At least not in the movie world.
It probably had to, like, the first time. Whoever did it the first time,
Yeah, that's why people kept doing
probably
it.
got away with it, and it's like, oh, that worked, huh? But then it never worked ever again after that. When they get to the studio, Laura has quite the impressive display for him, because on the big video walls, we get Bruce Lee highlights, and boy, what a way to experience the Bruce Lee movies. Bigger than life.
And what an amazing way to kind of show someone you're interested in them. Like she's done the work, put in the time, done this awesome show that she's in, willing to learn his interests and everything.
Right.
Very cool.
And this is old school, folks. She couldn't just upload all this on her phone or computer and just boop boop beep. You had to do some real editing. You were going from machine to machine, and you were doing.
That's right. No boop boop beeping at all.
There was none of that.
You can't have an AI make me a Bruce Lee.
She put in the work.
You had to actually get the Bruce Lee movies,
trap
which probably
video.
were not at the music studio.
Right, she had to go get right. Good for you, Laura. Outside though, Richie's outside the studio, and he's still talking big. He's going to get Laura, and they're like, "There's something going on inside," because they hear the music and the whole video thing going on. So they sneak inside, like as Richie's known to do, and boy, he sees his big brother, who he just thinks is nothing, smooching with his lady.
That's right. That's what you get, you little piece of shit.
Wow, that took a turn. But then that gets it, because Leroy sees the Bruce in disguise footage from Fist of Fury, and the light bulb goes off in his head. So he's got something. He knows how he's going to complete his mission. But it's like 2 seconds after he leaves, Chris, the bad guys show up.
Yeah, he's a great bodyguard.
Yep, we're on to kidnapping number 3, and this time Richie, who had previously been dumped in a garbage can by Sho'nuff, is now taken captive as well.
Yeah.
So people in Bruce Leroy's orbit are not having the best week.
No, wrong place, wrong time. If you're Richie,
like Spider-Man.
Okay. So meanwhile, Leroy has disguised himself as a pizza delivery man, not unlike Dusty Rhodes.
Or Peter Parker.
And he returns to the fortune cookie shop. And while that's going on, Angie has gone looking for Leroy.
Wait, did you say fortune cookie,
Brain? I did.
You have a potential urge and the ability for accomplishment. I don't even know what the heck that one means.
Well, apparently I'm going to accomplish
You
something.
might want to accomplish
I,
something.
I I try to accomplish something every day.
What is a potential urge? Like,
Mm,
I don't have an urge, but I have the potential to
well,
have an urge.
that's what it means. Possibly, I might have the urge to do something, and I guess
That actually sounds like me quite a bit, usually.
I'll do it. This time, if I get that possible urge, this time I'll actually follow through on it. So yeah, Angie's going looking for Leroy to warn him because she's done with Eddie, and she finds the great Johnny Yu instead, and warns Johnny there's a trap. Don't let Leroy go anywhere near Seventh Heaven. And we cut to Seventh Heaven. Eddie is now in control. He's messing with the video walls. He's having a good old time. Back at the shop, Huey, Dewey, and Louie are playing hopscotch with Leroy because he did not want to play craps, which they did play craps in A Bronx Tale with Chaz Palminteri.
Huey, Dewey, Louie did?
No, just they in general. The kid who went to, well, he was just a kid then. It was before he went to jail.
I did kind of like the Huey, Dewey, and Louie characters of how it's like the flip that they're the ones of Asian descent and they're kind of playing into a lot of the stereotypes of kung fu and kind of toying around with Leroy. I like that little flip of the dynamic.
And at that point, yeah, he gets frustrated, does Leroy, kicks down the door. There is no master. It's all just a computer, a machine that's pumping this stuff out. There's no master coming up with these fortunes.
Unbelievable.
I mean, especially in the shop that, some dumb goy.
Yeah.
It's almost like a very Three Stooges-esque name.
Dewey.
I did like too the machine that was just like the most stereotypical computer. It's like spitting out like beep 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 beep. Speaking of spitting out, stay curious. There's always more to learn.
Thank you.
I feel like that's actually pretty apt for what Leroy
Yeah.
is learning throughout this experience here as he's going to go
Oh,
to
I
his.
thought you were telling people to stay curious about the art of spitting. I thought you were getting sexual, Ryan Campbell. I didn't know this was going to
He's
become
gonna
an X-rated podcast here.
he's gonna go to his former trainer
Mhm.
and learn this very lesson.
Yeah. He goes back, and that master is like packing up. He's going to go visit his mom in Miami. And yeah, Bruce Leroy's a little bit. I don't think he knows what to. He's really at a crossroads here, Chris, because the whole thing is he was finding this master, and it was all a ruse.
And yeah, it's he's confused. He feels misled, and his master's like, think harder, Leroy. Like, what am I trying to tell you here? Like, what's the most obvious answer to this? And it's just, kind of another, mind fuck to Bruce Leroy. He's like, I thought this was like a straight path, and now here's a curve. Where do I go? What do I do?
Right.
Kung Fu Panda stole this.
Of course it did, bastard. So Johnny passes on the warning to Leroy. But Leroy, of course, is going to go to Seventh Heaven anyway. Johnny's like, I'm going to go too, but Leroy tricks him and locks him in the, I guess, like just a storage locker type place. So Leroy arrives at Seventh Heaven, and all those hired goons are there, other than Sho'nuff.
I think someone's trying to break into Seventh Heaven.
And so we got, we get a good old fashioned brawl starting, Chris. We get everybody is kung fu fighting type situation.
Yeah, Bruce Leroy starts having to handle all of the unemployed indie workers. I mean, the goons that Eddie Arcadian had hired. And what was that one big guy that body's name? Goliath. Arcadian's kind of like rooting them all on. And then we get the first inspirational music beat because here comes the cavalry. All of Bruce Leroy's students come rushing to his aid, and we've got a Pier 6 brawl. It's breaking down.
Oh, Brain, growing up, there was nothing that we loved more than in like a kung fu movie when a kid gets to kick an adult's ass. Three Ninjas, we love that shit.
Ernie Reyes Jr., man, he's something. And I would much rather watch this 9,000 times than ever watch Surf Ninjas again.
Well, you're gonna have to watch some Sidekicks and The Last Electric Knight.
Mm,
Watch, because that was just a year after this.
mhm. So yeah, we get the big martial arts mayhem at Seventh Heaven. But when that starts to fizzle out, Eddie uses Laura to lure Leroy into that designated place at the designated time. And here we go, gentlemen. We're finally going to get it. It's Sho'nuff versus Bruce Leroy.
Finally, for a while there, as someone who's never seen it, I wasn't sure if Sho'nuff was even supposed to be taken as a legitimate character or just kind of this comedic villain that would kind of tag along throughout the entire movie as he deals with the real villain, of Arcadian. But no, there's a tremendous fight here at the end.
And we find out that this glow that we've heard about, Sho'nuff has the glow, Chris.
Ooh.
The fight in the beginning kind of goes back and forth, and then Leroy thinks he's got the advantage, but then it almost goes into like horror movie territory where Sho'nuff disappears from where Leroy had left him laying, and then he's, Leroy, and then all of a sudden you find out that Sho'nuff is his hands are glowing red,
Mm-hmm.
and this is definitely not what Leroy expected, but it is, as we will soon find out, it's all part of the journey.
Yeah, he tries to basically drown Bruce. And that's, if you're either going to drown or you're going to make a big comeback. And Bruce makes the big comeback, and now he is glowing. And he does the Bruce Lee Fist of Fury gimmick where his hand, like, just mesmerizing his opposition. And of course, as you might expect, when it's all said and done, Bruce Leroy defeats Sho'nuff.
And let's not forget that as he's being drowned and he's starting to kind of like have his flashbacks, during the final fight, they're playing the song from the beginning,
Mm.
and you're listening and listening. And then as Bruce Leroy is being drowned and the flashbacks start, that's when the chorus, "You are the last dragon." It's like there's that moment of clarity. Like, we hit that beat, and then that nice slow motion shot of him getting yanked out of the water and showing us, "All right, Leroy, who's the one and only master?" And now Leroy's kind of got this cocky ass smirk, like he finally figured it all out. He's like, "I am." And Sho'nuff's like, "Ooh," goes for the death blow, and Leroy just grabs his fist and gets overtaken by the glow. He's like, "I am." And even Sho'nuff is like, "What the fuck?" Like,
Whoa.
Sho'nuff, who
Yeah.
had mastered the glow, is like, what is this shit? Like, what?
That's right.
And then it's a trip to Ass Kick City because Leroy lays waste to his rival.
Ass Kick City, population 1. Sho'nuff. All right. Well, but you know who does not.
I guess he didn't show enough glow to win the fight.
Okay. Let's move on. Eddie Arcadian is not willing to concede defeat, as one might imagine. He's like, you know what? All this kung fu shit is no match for a gun. And he shoots our man, Bruce Leroy.
Say your prayers, scum sucker.
What a way to end the film. Just shoot the guy in the head.
Shoots the guy.
Credits roll. Credits roll.
No.
Laura dies.
Hold up.
Richie
No,
dies.
hold up.
Oh, my Roku app.
Bruce gets shot in the head, apparently. Laura and Richie are very obviously upset by this. But then, as movies often do, they told us something early on in the film. Maybe they didn't follow through on the piranha. But Bruce Leroy caught the bullet in his teeth.
Now, I do have one thing that always kind of bothered me about that scene.
The fact that a human caught a bullet in his teeth?
Well, no,
Okay.
no.
He's got the glow.
He catches the bullet. Now, the whole movie, he's kind of been perceived as like not necessarily a weakling because he's obviously willing to get down and dirty, like he saves Laura Charles all the million times that she gets kidnapped. But we only hear that story mentioned once. So we never see him do anything outside of the practical martial arts to lead you to believe, oh, that's true. You never hear someone be like, oh, that time you fought so and you caught that bullet. It's kind of like they said it and then they forget it. He does it here. So it's a nice, follow-up to that. But the bullet glows, which leaves you with the impression that the glow enabled him to do that. So if he's been searching for the glow and he caught the bullet thanks to his newfound power, how did he catch the previous bullet?
Or did Sho'nuff just was it just like a prophecy that there is this man, and he put two and two together that it's Bruce Leroy. So he knew before Bruce Leroy even knew?
Yeah, I do wonder how he built
And
up
that's
this
why he
reputation.
hated him. That would make sense. That's why he hated him so
Yeah,
much.
he
Like,
knew Bruce
I
Leroy was going to
know
be the
that,
pain in the ass before Bruce Leroy knew he was going to be the pain in his ass.
yep.
Mm-hmm. I just solved a problem for you.
So he was trying to take him out before he would realize his full
Correct.
potential.
Correct.
The old go back in time and kill baby Hitler scenario.
Mm-hmm. So after he does that, Eddie's of course dumb, shocked, just doesn't know what to do. And then next thing you know, he's being hung up with a chain. The police arrive. Leroy disappears once again. The police take care of Eddie Arcadian, and we go to the next episode of Laura's Video Hot Picks, because you know what? The show must go on, folks. It just has to. You've got contracts and advertisers, so you've got to keep going. But it's very clear, Ryan Campbell, that Laura's not herself.
No, even though everybody's dressed in white, she's down in the dumps. She's probably the one guy she put the charm on and never got until Leroy shows up, and he's learned a few things. He must have read a book or done something, talked to his mom. I don't know.
Helps him out in all areas.
Well, he wants to learn some things because that's, he's trying to talk to her and she's like, I can't hear you all over this commotion, this music and this dancing. And, the last thing he says is, could you teach me some moves? Following up on his very meek encounter with her earlier in the film.
Yeah, but he shows up with flowers, which I think is a pretty big statement. It's like the first kind of like forward-thinking thing he's done
good,
to reciprocate her,
and a very regal suit jacket type thing with no shirt.
Quite the gentleman.
Yeah, I think they just got married right here.
He may have.
Everybody was in white, See, maybe that was the impression. They found love, and everybody was ready to kind of celebrate that.
And it's also nice Richie does give his brother the respect he deserves after berating him earlier in the film. Just an all-around happy ending as the end credits roll.
Then they ascend into the rafters, into the lights, and go to Bone Town.
Bone Town. Ryan Campbell, your first impression of this movie and your final thoughts.
Yeah, it just oozes style, which is nice. Like the combination of different styles, the urban environment, the kung fu environment, I love when movies introduce kind of something random like we talk about the glow, but at no point throughout the movie do we think there's going to be a literal glow effect that's going to be on the characters until the very end. So, I mean, it's like I said, tons of style, great musical cues, some fun performances. It's a really fun watch.
Toyman, I know you've watched this movie countless times.
Countless times. I mean, this was one of those films, I've mentioned often on the podcast, the films that I would watch with my cousins and the films that he would tape for me back in the day. This being one of them. I mean, like I said, I was 5, 6 years old when I first saw this film. I've loved it ever since. Just a great, great film that I could watch a million times and never get sick of it. I love how it follows the beats of the old school kung fu films that you and I have a great affinity for, but it never gets too, downtrodden. There's never a lot of downtime. There's always something going on. It's a great love letter to kung fu. It's a great love letter to the 80s. Old school kung fu and Motown R&B. Like you wouldn't think that it's a combination that mixes, but everything here really works. Like it is a very 80s feeling movie. It does feel and look like a product of its time, but that's just part of its charm, and it maintained that charm all these years later.
Yeah, the magic that the 80s had with the merging of the music and the movie and the soundtrack. Like in this case, the soundtrack was probably more successful than the actual movie at the time. again, Rhythm of the Night was everywhere. That was a hit. And yeah, it just, that time, like so many, like you needed both. You needed to have a strong soundtrack and the movie, because that was like, you did that, you've made yourself a classic, and that's exactly what they did here. Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon.
Definitely
And
has
don't forget
quite
about the
the
fantasy elements
Right.
too. The fantasy element of the glow and
Mhm.
everything. Not just it's not just like an old school kung fu movie where it's like, you're on a
Right.
journey, then you're out for revenge and the end. It kind of played into the stuff, He-Man,
Mhm.
She-Ra, like someone kind of trying to claim this magic power or, turn into a greater being because of this magic power. The whole thing with the glow, it that just makes it again seems like a product of its time, but again, part of its charm,
I
part of
mean,
what
this
makes
one
the
I
movie
remember
so good.
when I was waiting for this thing to hit the video store, because I think at about that time, 85 is when we got our first VCR. So some of the first things I remember renting were the original Breakin' and Missing in
Mhm.
Action, and this couldn't have been far behind, Last Dragon. So, oh,
it definitely has a cult following. Just when
yeah.
I wasn't sure what it was on, so I just YouTube to see if it was on YouTube, and there was no shortage of
Oh, yeah.
videos of
People,
people talking about it, breaking it down, expressing their admiration for it. There was a ton of videos about this
and
movie.
there's going to be one more now. So yeah, I'm glad you got to experience it. It's been quite a few years since I watched it, so I was happy to revisit this one. Um, and there you go. It's The Last Dragon here on the Bulletproof podcast. I mentioned social media earlier. I'll mention it again at Bulletproof Pod on X and Blue Sky, at Bulletproof Action on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. I also want to talk. We mentioned it last time, Chris, and I had not listened to it yet, but that PM Entertainment podcast, there, the Sweeper, that was an excellent episode. Spiro Rosado's Joseph Mary himself, plus Brett and Ty from Come Up Into Review, and I love their reviews. Great show, and now there's another episode that I need to watch on Rage. So if
Yeah, I saw you post about that. I've got the first episode on my to listen list. It's been kind of a busy week here, so haven't had a chance to listen to much, but I'm hoping that over the weekend, as I'm doing all of my household duties and getting some stuff done while I don't have to worry about shuffling Zach off to school or anything like that during the week. I'll get to enjoy those podcasts because PM Entertainment, we love them as much as we love Canon Films around these parts. So I'm very interested in hearing the breakdowns and the talks about those films.
yeah, if you are a PM Entertainment fan, you have to listen to this podcast. It's very well done. So congratulations to John, who's the host. He's really put something special there together, and you can tell he loves PM Entertainment, and that's good enough for me. Next time here on our podcast, though, we've been crossing some guys off the list. We finally covered a Jeff Wincott movie. We finally covered a Jerry Trimble movie. Well, next time here we'll wrap up March. We're going to cover a David Bradley movie, and not just any David Bradley movie, because American Samurai, as we record this, it was released on the Internet Archive, the director's cut from Lyle Goodwin and Sam Furstenberg himself. They worked tirelessly on this one. This has been a long time coming. The director's cut of American Samurai. David Bradley, a young Mark Dacascos. It's been a
Hmm.
long time since I've watched the version I'm used to. I've obviously never seen the director's cut. So looking forward to that. And that is what we will be talking about next time here on the podcast. Ryan Campbell, any final words you'd like to share before we go home on this one?
Absolutely. We're going to open one more cookie.
Okay.
Brain, if you chase two rabbits, both will escape.
Ah, I like it. Makes sense. Toyman.
Also,
Oh,
also the Invincible finale review is up. Go check that out.
yep. Invincible has wrapped up.
It was so good.
I'm very pleased with it, and I've not watched a single episode, but I'm very happy that we have it on our site.
Toyman Daredevil was really good this week.
Yeah,
A heck of an
I
episode.
was, for an episode that was not heavy on the action, it was an excellent episode to carry the storyline over.
Electric State, you'll be covering that by the time this drops, Ryan Campbell.
Oh yeah, from what I hear, it's dog shit. So that's gonna be
It's
interesting.
going to be one of those rare Ryan Campbell hates a movie reviews.
I don't know. I might like
That's
it.
true.
A lot of times, these early
He's going to
reviews,
prepare for the hate watch that's coming up in April.
because they do this thing where they're like, they release like, oh, it just debuted on Rotten Tomatoes with a 10%, but it had like 5 reviews, and the movie don't come out for 3 weeks. So those could be just pretentious douchebags that were going into it never going to like it because it's a Netflix movie. So I'm interested. I mean, I want to see if I like it. There's not a ton to go off of if you're not familiar. It's literally just based on like a picture book, like it's like a concept art book. It's not even like there's not like a story into it. So I'm really interested in just kind of going into it now, seeing what I think, and we'll see if it is dog shit.
By the time this drops, that will already be up there. And yeah, you never know. Oh, again, later in the month, A Working Man comes out, and I'll probably do a season 3 recap of Reacher, which has been very good thus far. So looking forward to wrapping that up. All right, Chris, do you have anything else before we go?
As always, please check out figurestoycompany.com for all of your wrestling figure and retro figure needs. Lots of stuff in stock, lots of stuff coming in stock over the next couple of months. So if you've got those tax returns coming in, please go on ahead and use that tax return money to support Figures Toy Company. It's figurestoycompany.com. Please check out all of my reviews at Bulletproof Action. We just did the podcast last week, as Brain mentioned, on Full Contact with Jerry Trimble, which is one of my favorite episodes to do. So check that one out. And as the day that you drop this, as you hear this, just one day later, we talked about the glow in The Last Dragon, but the light that shines bright every day in this household turns 10. So my son normally listens to his dad ramble on about his favorite action movies. So a very happy 10th birthday to the little guy himself, to little Zach. He is 10 on the 19th. So I'll end with a happy birthday for the little guy.
Happy birthday, Zach. Double digits.
Double digits. We are there. 1
Big one.
decade.
It is. It's a big one. You'll never have single digits again, young man. It's all gone. It's all downhill from here. No,
And if he's anything like his dad, he won't be single much longer either.
Or have hair. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for listening. And as always, stay tuned for more of the Bulletproof Podcast.